Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. Man walks down the street. It's a street in a strange world. Maybe it's the third world. Maybe it's his first time around. He doesn't speak the language. He holds no currency. He is a foreign man. He is surrounded by the sound of cattle in the marketplaces, scatterlings and orphanages. He looks around. He sees angels in the architecture, spinning in infinity. He says amen and hallelujah. And if you be my bodyguard, I've got no rhythm. And today I want to make what I think is quite a shocking announcement. I have tended not to use this channel for personal business. I've tried to keep it all about books, but something happened in the last week which I wanted to bring to your attention. It's not something I'm proud of. I hope, I'm not sure, I don't think it's going to happen again anytime soon. But it happened, and I want to sort of hold my hands up and say, with all the best intentions in the world, I DNF'd a book. Maybe the first time I have put down a book after starting reading it in, I think certainly more than 10 years, maybe longer than that. I've spoken before about how my the compact I make with an author when I start reading a book is I'm going to read it from start to finish. I'm book monogamous. I read one book, and I read reasonably fast. Although this whole year my pace is down. I've read fewer books this year than I have in the past 5 or 6. But regardless, I'm usually I start a book even if. A couple of things. I'll talk about once I've started. If I start a book, even if I think this isn't great, I'm usually able to push through because there's another book coming. As soon as I finish this one, I get to read a whole other book. But prior to this, before I even start reading a book, and I think I've spoken about this before, but this is something that books are my number one hobby. I love buying books. I'm always online shopping books. I'm always reading articles about books. I'm always trying to find out about new books or that are just coming out, or tracking down and reading older books which have come up on my radar. I think, well, I really should have read that if I want to know. So books is really one of the things that I think about and spend time on the internet researching. But part of that reading is my main hobby thing is that occasionally I'll try and read things that I don't know much about. So within the handful of genres that I deal with and dabble in, which is sort of just if it's not clear, things like contemporary literature, what they call literary fiction, that is, the classics. I read comic books, usually based on an author. I read that whole, some people call them mysteries or thrillers or detective fiction. Sort of, I put it under the umbrella of crime, spies and heists and detectives and accidental detectives. All that I kind of lump into one, and often series books with recurring lead characters. I read a bunch of those. So within those groups, there are specific books that I'm looking for, that I've heard about, or authors that I've read in the past that I want to read. But I do leave some room in my reading calendar for new things, for exploring. Oh, that sounds interesting. Oh, I've never read this author before. Oh, let me try this. Or I'm looking. I've got so many crime series on the go. I'll look for something else, something a little bit different, something with a different perspective, something that sounds like not the same as everything else that I've read before. I don't need another carbon copy of the kind of series that I'm reading right now. I'm looking for something quirky, different, sometimes standalones, if it's particularly good, if it's something about it appeals to me. Okay, that's all about how I curate what I buy. And then as soon as I finish a book, I decide at that point. Sometimes I have an idea in my head what I'm going to read next, but I usually only make the decision at that point. I take the bookmark out of the book I just finished, I go into the room with my TBR, and I choose the next book. I tend to jump from genre to genre, and as I said, it's only a handful of genres that I'm covering, but I rarely will read 2 literary. I left out sort of non-fiction essays and that kind of stuff as well as another genre. I tend to go, if I've read a non-fiction, I'll read some fiction. If I've read a heavy piece of fiction, I might read a graphic novel afterwards, and then go into a piece of non-fiction, or then read a crime thriller just to sort of speed things. Usually those are faster reads for me, so it's a good way of building momentum, and after something that's been languorous but amazing but taken me some time, might go and read a zippy, fast talking sort of noirish thriller to get me back into the thing of things. That I can build up my reboost my energy, and I can go and tackle Anthony Trollope or an 800-page western or whatever it may be. So the book that I DNF'd, let me give some background. So two things. First, I'm not going to say what the title is, not because if you want to ask me what the title of the book is, message me and I'll tell you the name of the book. It's not, I have no problem having a negative opinion of a book. I just am never so certain of my own opinions that I think something negative necessarily needs to be broadcast. Although in the past I have given bad views to things, but only things that I have read from cover to cover. So this is a book that I got 65 pages into out of about 380, and made decisions. This last Saturday morning, I'm sitting in bed, my eyes there. I just finished a fantastic a book of Salman Rushdie's essays from the Fatwa years, so sort of what 90s up to about 2002. He's got so I'd previously read the 80s. This is the 90s, and then a couple of years ago he published the 2002 to 2020, whatever it is, and I've just ordered a copy of Knife. So I like reading Rushdie's non-fiction. This was essays, sort of short newspaper columns, etc. But 450 pages of this. It was some of it was quite dense, but just a joy to read. And I thought, the other thing was a new lot of books arrived. My friend, I've mentioned before, my friend who's a pilot for a well-known international carrier was visiting, and I had sent a whole bunch of books to his home in London, because we're going to London in a couple of weeks, and he brought out a bunch of books. So I was full of the joys of spring. I had a whole set of books. I'd forgotten what I'd ordered. He brought them in their packages. I got to open them and do the whole thing. I didn't do a book haul online, apologies. And this was one of the new books. So I finished my Salman Rushdie Saturday morning, leaving bed. Let's pick up something light, something very readable. This has got a gorgeous cover. Again, I'm not going to show you the cover. And I must have read enough about this book. It's published in the last couple of years, so fairly recent, and had a great sort of high concept blurb where it's this meets this. Again, I'm not going to say what those things are, because you could easily Google it and know exactly what book this is. I am going to read the extract that broke this camel's back. I had reservations up at that point because the book was, frankly, terribly written, just embarrassingly inept, and yet I had chosen it. So somewhere along the line, something about the hype, something about the reviews, something about the people who blurbed this book had attracted me. The subject matter had attracted me, like that high concept pitch line. It's this meets this. I went, oh yeah, I like that, and I like that. That sounds interesting. I want to also add a tiny amount of color, but I'm not going to talk about this very much, just because I don't think I can do it justice in a video. The author is an author of colour, and that was setting off something in my liberal sort of whitey brain was, diversity. I haven't read a story about this culture and this insider look at a specific world. But to be fair, this was not literary fiction. This was set up as a heist movie, and the influences of the author, which I've subsequently then looked up what the author said about writing this book, and the influences were so lowbrow. If you want to do a heist story, there are many highbrow references that you could get to, many great works of crime fiction, both movies and literature, that have been elevated because they rose above their genre. This person's very proud of the kind of movies that they like, and it's mostly movies. I'm not sure this person has ever read a thriller, a crime book in their lives. So this was very movie oriented and just riddled with cliche, just to the extent it was beyond imagining how base and unimaginative and trivial this whole thing was. And lots of different characters and different points of view, none of them believable, none of them real. So the writing was utterly inept. And then I'm going to read to you the paragraph that broke me, And I just looked at my wife, who couldn't believe that I was thinking of. I said, I don't know if I picked this up because I thought it was going to be fun. I'd go on to my next challenging read, and this was horrific. And this is the paragraph I'm going to read to you. One of the characters is contemplating participating in this heist. The gang has been pulled together, and you've got this one and that one, and each one has got their own special set of special set of skills that they bring to the thing. Crucially, none of them have any experience. They're all 21, and they're talking about, oh yeah, when I was a kid I was like this, but then suddenly I became the world's greatest hacker. No, you're 21, you've got nothing, you've got no opinions about anything, you have no experience of anything. Oh, my father is this, and that gives me, that means that I know everything about. No, it doesn't. If your father is the greatest dentist in the world, you cannot go out there and drill a cavity when you're 21 just because you lived in the house with the dentist. That's not how skills and knowledge and professional understanding and experience work. The whole thing was absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, this was the paragraph that broke me. I'm going to read it. I'm going to try and hide the book behind the screen, so I'm going to look over here while I read it. So apologies for that. So we're in the library. So one of these characters is contemplating whether or not to participate in this heist, despite the fact they have no discernible skills, no reason to do the heist. The rewards are not that significant, except there's some sort of cultural meaning if they carry this out, which I didn't get at all, but that's me. Okay. The library was almost full, even at this hour, with students working on papers or P-sets or just procrastinating on Netflix. Her laptop battery icon began to blink at her, and she snaked her charger beneath the table, fingers running over the smooth black plastic of an empty outlet. Okay, that's what broke me. The smooth black plastic of an empty outlet. That's not writing. That's just horseshit words. I'm sorry. For me to DNF a book, first of all, I feel violated because I did something terrible. And this poor author, first novel, I think they've already got a contract for their second one. So my initial response was, I looked at their bio and they have a day job. I thought, this person's just done this because they're an overachiever and they've written a book. They're not going to continue this because this day job, according to the bio, seems to be pretty full on. But turns out they have another book. This is sold reasonably well. It was reviewed reasonably well, and they have a second book coming out next year. I won't be picking it up. If anyone ever asks me, mentions this author's name and asks me, I'll say, yeah, I started one of those books. It was so poorly written that I could not bring myself. Someone who has not DNF'd a book in well over a decade, maybe two, I could not bring myself to read further. I put it down. That's pretty much it. Why am I telling this story? I'd love to hear more. I'm always amazed when people talk about books they've just picked up in a free library or on the street and a sidewalk in Brooklyn and taken home to read. I don't do that. I'm so careful. I vet every book that I bring in and place on the on my TBR pile. I vet very carefully so that, yes, occasionally I'll read something which I don't like. Occasionally I'll read something which I don't get on with. Occasionally I'll read something which is like just dense and didn't really succeed on a level that I think the author was. I'll have sort of, I think, an attempt, an intelligent critique of why I didn't like something, and also hopefully why I did like something, not just I had this emotional reaction. This was just weak, terrible writing, had no reason to exist. This author does not understand how to write or what writing is. I went back and read some of the reviews and I hold my hands up. I specifically filtered and read 1-star reviews of this book to see what I was missing. It's a heist movie. This was still, they hadn't got to the heist, story. And all the 1-star reviews talk about how there's a great build up to the heist, and then the heist happens off the page. All the things, all the skills that each of these disparate characters are supposed to bring to the thing, you never see them. There's no explanation of where they got them. You never see that. The writer cannot write. It's just in the head, bullshit things, shiny black plastic outlets, snaking a charger under the table. It's so overwritten and poorly written. You snaked your charger. Who cares about how she plugged the laptop in? She had to snake her charger to the shiny black plastic. God, it's so irrelevant. It's so not writing. It's so got nothing to do with thrillers or propulsive writing or anything to do with why I would pick up a book in the first place. I feel like I was cheated by the reviews of this book. I don't care how many people liked it. The stuff they wrote. Anyone who read the same stuff I have doesn't understand this genre or what writing is. It was just terrible. And again, if you ask me, if you come, someone sends me a message, I'm happy to tell you what the book is. I didn't finish it. I don't feel good about bad-mouthing something when I couldn't fulfill the basic compact between author and reader, and that is for the reader to complete the work. I couldn't. Sorry. Holding my hands up. I hope it won't happen again. Who knows? Bye.